Hello, everyone, and welcome to the House of Mystery. Today, we are going to share our unpopular opinions in regards to comics. With me, I have Tyler.
What's up, man? Peace. How's everybody doing?
I have a new person in the group, Cirsova.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
We have Dion,
Hello, everyone. How you all doing?
and we have Dalton.
Yes, I. Here there be controversy. You have been warned.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're going to be sharing our unpopular opinions, things that we believe but might not be the common belief in the fandom. So, Tyler, do you want to go first?
Uh, Man, I was hoping I wouldn't have to go first. Not really. There, look, yeah, look, just for the sake of I want to see how this plays. I might end up piggybacking on someone else's sentiment. Let's let somebody else go first.
All right, Dalton.
Okay, my first court of controversy for the evening will be I think Alan Moore was the weakest element of the British invasion.
Now, for those who don't know, what was the British invasion?
Okay, so back in the 70s, well, late 70s, 80s, and through the 90s, comics was in a bit of a death spiral because of some business mismanagement and a lack of creative ideas. Fortunately, the ass of the industry was pulled directly out of the fire by what is referred to as the British invasion, which is essentially an influx of journalists, novelists, and comic book writers from across the pond there. Many of the greatest comics in probably the history of the medium were written in that time, and it was enough to basically put the industry on life support until it could get back on its feet again.
And you think Alan Moore is the weakest? Why?
Because he's kind of patient zero for a lot of the major problems we're having in this day and age. The needless deconstruction, the politicization, the never treating heroes as though they should be archetypal or as though they should be noble. They're always giving into their baser urges and so on and so forth. And he can never he can never add to the mythic weight of comics. He can only ever sort of do a edgy punk rock sort of riff on it as opposed to adding anything to it. All of his greatest works are in this vein, by the way. Watchmen was originally going to be a DC story, but they told him no, so he just created basic deconstructions of Captain Atom, The Question, Batman, and I forget some of the other ones, but yeah, and of course, the thing that most people don't remember about V for Vendetta, at least the comic, is V's a V's an Ancom. V would be not out of place in Antifa in this day and age. So yeah, and even when
Hmm.
he tries to do something with a little bit of mythic panache to it, he still does the edgelord version of it. Like for example, League of Victorian Gentlemen. Um, all of his versions of those characters are not playing their source material straight at all. They're just what if we turned these characters into superheroes rather than they already were sort of the precursors of superheroes, which is in my opinion where he should have went with it. And also, let's not forget that Alan Moore is out mostly for the ego gratification of Alan Moore, as seen every time someone tries to adapt one of his works and changes even the slightest thing.
Didn't he blow up when they announced before Watchmen?
Yes, yes, he did. And the main thing that pissed him off was actually nothing to do with like the technical ins and outs of the material. It was that Zack Snyder was coming at it from a contrary political lens, because like I said, Alan Moore is very 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 far to the anarchic left, and as most people know at this point, Zack Snyder is a Randian objectivist. So a lot of the things that Alan Moore was intended as, or rather, a lot of the things that he intended as satire, Zack Snyder played straight because he saw nothing wrong with it. And the fact that the Watchmen movie was made from a contrary political lens is the thing that made Alan Moore blow up like crazy.
Well, and of course, he hates it that everyone's favorite character is Rorschach because he was supposed to be like the Steve Ditko question punching bag to make fun of Randy and objectivism.
Of Randy and objectivism, and because
but everybody loves him because he's the only character in the story who really has a moral center and an arc.
Well, it's also true that a lot of the reason for the positive framing of Rorschach is because Zack Snyder himself is a Randian objectivist. So a lot of the satire, or a lot of what was intended as satire, is really just playing his ideology straight. So that's the funny thing there. Yeah, I think all things considered, Alan Moore was probably the weakest of the British invasion, because looking at some of the other examples of the British invasion, you've got Grant Morrison, who is a lover of Golden Age minutia. You've got Neil Gaiman, who is basically the master of mythology, and pulls Golden Age factoids out of his ass like nobody's business. Just for respect of the material and the hell of it, honestly. And you've got like Garth Ennis, who can be a little bit edgy, but at least has what I would determine a respect for the medium. Even the most straightforward of Alan Moore's work, which is probably his run on Swamp Thing, the main weakness of that Swamp Thing run, and it is a good run, don't get me wrong. The man has talent, even though he takes things from a lens I disagree with a lot of the time. The main thing wrong with that, though, is that Swamp Thing is actually kind of a minor character in that run. A lot of the good storytelling of that story is characters other than Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing just sort of shows up at the end and fixes things.
All right. Anybody got any other comments about Dalton's unpopular opinion?
I would actually offer a counter argument to that claim.
Please feel free.
All right. So yes. Well, one can argue that Alan Moore is considered like the patient zero of what is going on within the comic book industry, such as the needless deconstruction, because people want to like capture that lightning in the bottle that is Watchmen. But as the years pass, he has actually gone well, if you evoke the trope, lighter and softer in his work, as he's getting some regret of how this deconstructed fleet. So if you read his works like Promethea or his run on Supreme, like Image Comics, in a way it's him atoning for what he had done in the past, and like embracing like the more lighter side of superheroism, and recognize them as the archetypes that people should look up to.
Yeah, you do got to give him credit for that.
Well, I mean, but I'll give you that he is maturing, but in terms of the impact he's had and the legacy he has,
oh yeah, he's already ruined everything.
I think he's the like I said, I think he's the patient zero of all the trends that we've grown to hate. And the reason why he got away with it is, of course, because he is very, very good at the thing he does. But even things like Promethea have an unnecessary sort of edge to them, and from what I know of Promethea, and I read through it once, but I haven't read through it again. I need to get the trade, is what I need to do. But from what I remember of Promethea, it was basically him trying to do something more sort of metaphysically oriented in the same vein as like the Sandman, but with his own characters and sort of mysticism about it. And there was still a little bit of that unnecessary edge the sort of apocalyptic, we as humans are going to destroy the world sort of vibe to it.
All
Yeah,
right.
you're not. Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Like I did like catch women when I read the first volume of the deluxe edition of Promethea. But other than that, it was still an enjoyable series with an interesting story as well as characters that you get to know, love, and appreciate. Especially when you learn the history of Promethea, because in a way it's like Avatar.
Well, I mean, again, Alan Moore is very good at what he does, but that doesn't change the fact that what he does on its own sort of leaves a lot wanting.
And I can agree to that. Again, you're not wrong.
All right, guys. Dion, you're up. Share one of your unpopular opinions.
Oh well, I guess I actually have two actually, two unpopular opinions.
Well, tell us one now. Save the other for later.
All right, all right. Well, I guess for an unpopular opinion, I like Gwenpool.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to tell us why?
Yeah, sure. I now I did read like the first volume of her series, and and the idea for her is interesting. A character, basically, like what would happen if a reader from the real world enters into a comic book, and I liked her design from from the creative the art team Guri Hero, give it like an anime-esque feel. And and while there were some parts of the series that I didn't really like, it was the idea of it was interesting and worth exploring. But and as the years pass, people have grown to like her, and also with how different artists, not artists, different writers like use Gwenpool. Well, even though it's from different interpretations, like the core of our character remains
Tyler,
the
what's going on?
same. Oh,
Hmm? Did I do something?
You were
Your
just
mic
making
was
some noise.
shifting or something.
yeah.
Oh, oh, sorry. I might have moved my laptop like just a smidge. I was just hooking up my charger to it. That's all I did.
Oh,
All right.
I
Okay.
My,
see.
my bad.
No, it's okay.
Continue.
I'll say, like even as different writers like use Gwenpool like in titles outside of her own, like her core characteristics remain the same, and in some ways write her better than Heather Antos. And
I think she was the editor, not the writer.
well, oh yeah, you're right. I forgot.
It
I
was
forgot
just
like who
based
the
on
writer
her.
was. Okay, but yeah, it's been a while since I've read Gwenpool. I forgot like who the writer was, but I do remember the art team.
So, personally, I am not a fan of this character. Um, yeah, like Gwenpool is a parody of a parody, and I just I read comics for. I'll enjoy a funny story every once in a while, but I read comics for like more serious, more epic adventures. And I'm sorry, but I cannot take that character seriously at all. I've tried, I just can't.
Yeah, one of my critiques for Gwenpool is it could have added some more dramatic and serious weight to her character as well as the theme of her series because like this essentially is someone from our reality in a fantasy world, or at least what we consider to be fantasy fiction. Yeah, so
Well,
she
it
could have
wasn't
like
even
got
just
more
the
development.
it wasn't even just the writing. It was also the art style. Art style is very important to comics because it coaches a visual medium and also it sets tone, the art style. And with that kind of anime-ish, um, cartoony type of art style, I just I just couldn't take it seriously.
Dion, I personally don't have any particular hatred for Gwenpool. I'm just kind of neutral on her, honestly. But if you want a better rendition of something similar to Gwenpool, I highly, highly, highly recommend Grant Morrison's run on Animal Man. If you're into that sort of meta awareness thing, because
Oh man.
not only does it manage to do that, but it does it in a more playing it straight, sort of serious, epic vernacular. I highly recommend Grant Morrison's run of Animal Man to basically everyone. It's one of his best works, and that's saying something because it's Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison's Animal Man series. It's been on my must read list for a long time. And it's just when you brought just when you mentioned it, like, oh man, I've just been dying like to read that run of Animal Man because he is an underrated character, and Grant Morrison, he was able to revitalize him in the past.
I liked
So
Jeff
good.
Lemire's run on Animal Man,
Oh
where
yeah, that's
it
another good
eventually
one.
crossed over with Swamp Thing and did the Route World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that did happen.
All right, somebody's roboting.
It's Dion, I think.
Yeah, and you're roboting. All right, Dion, if you can hear us, log out and log back in.
Must be having some problems.
Yeah. Cirsova, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. This one is a little bit different because it's not specifically pertaining to a writer or any one title. But one of my takes is that the comics that are going to be worth anything from this era are the ones that people are hating on all the time and making fun of because they're not popular. Especially the ones that are a couple issues in after that first one. They may not be good, but those titles are going to have scarcity, and there's going to be interest in them when people are looking back at this era, even if it's just to say what went wrong.
Yeah,
it's
I think it's going to be worth something, like in the same way the ET video game is worth something.
Well, the thing about the
or
ET video
Marvel.
game is, though, there were just tons of them. Whereas, like, take Goddess Mode, Zoe Quinn's comic. Yeah, there were 1,800 moved on or 18,000 moved on the first issue, but a couple issues in, they're only moving like 5,000-6,000 copies out to stores. So you got someone who's as big a train wreck as her, who's just absolutely on track to self-immolate. People are going to be curious, and if they ever want to check something like that out, there's only going to be a handful out there in the wild to find. And you'll see the same with stuff like America Chavez. Those comics are the ones that are actually holding their value and going up.
Those things did not sell, so stores have like tons of stock of them that just did not sell. And so if you want to buy one, it's not going to be that hard. And as far as the lower order count,
that's one of the reasons why I'm saying that it's going to be a couple issues in usually. Like it's not going to be the first ones because stores will order a lot on those. But once you get down to where the stores are like, we're not gonna be ordering or stocking these because nobody actually wants them. The only ones that are being ordered are the people who put them on their polls.
Well, here's the thing: if you're gonna want to read a story, like say you want to read Zoe Quinn's comic, you're not going to start out like a couple issues in. You're going to start at the beginning. And once you start at the beginning, you're not going to make it a couple issues in. Lord knows I didn't.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily people who are buying them because they actually want to read them or they're
just buying them to have them.
They're buying them to have them. They're buying them because it's curious. And I'm not talking about like right now or like in a year or two. I'm talking about like down the road.
Didn't the collector thing almost kill the industry though?
But that was also because there were so many. There were so many of everything out there. Like I've got some comics from like the early '90s that the editors for DC are saying, you guys really think this is going to last? I know y'all are complaining about all these variant covers, and yeah, no, none of this is going to be worth anything. It's like, oh my God, did an editor actually say that in the column? But no, it's not just Goddess Mode, but like a bunch of those little titles out there that people are going to be curious about the era. Like, even if it's just to be like, what went wrong? We want to know. We want to go back to these times
I guess
and
maybe
find
for
out
some of
what
the
went wrong.
I think maybe for some of the indies that might be the case, but I don't know for like things from like the big two.
Probably not the big two in most cases, but like I said, I've heard from comic store owners that some of those, like America Chavez, is holding its value, and it's actually going up in some cases on the later issues because there's just not a lot out in the wild. The people who do want them want them.
I do expect that you're right because of the fact that this is geek culture, and if anyone has appreciation for B grade and Z grade material that's very funny and sort of gonzo, it's geek culture. So
I mean, people still watch Plan 9 from Outer Space.
yeah, I mean, well, the entire filmography of Ed Wood is I own the box set of all of Ed Wood's movies. That should tell you something. So I suspect there is going to be some truth to that. And I also think that you may have at least tangentially touched on something I've been suspecting for a while. This era is the era of postmodernism in comics, at least, because everything is being subverted, degraded, deconstructed, and for the sake of a very, very niche political ideology. As much as the people who subscribe to this ideology hold power, and they do, it's only 8 or 9% of the population that actively subscribes to this ideology. So, yeah, I think if we are successful and the culture moves away from this particular ideology, we're going to look back on this era as the era where things essentially started to unravel.
I don't know. I still don't see people because they were introduced to geek culture. I mean, now, and nobody really wanted it. I don't see how that's going to change. I mean, this, there's a reason that they were scarce because nobody who wanted them. The, the only people that
Nobody wanted
wanted them
them.
were like a handful of people in like the country, if not the world.
Well, but there's always the MST3K effect of riffing. You don't given how successful people are now at just criticizing these books. Imagine in 5 years, 10 years, when the next generation of geeks has grown up, and they're hopefully, God and everything else willing, going to be living in an era of feminism was stupid. That was a very terrible bend our culture took for a while. And those people, those kids are going to look at things like Goddess Mode and things like America and things like that as you or I would look at The Room or MST3K or Plan 9 for Outer Space or the collective filmography of Ed Wood. And the good thing about that is, assuming that YouTube makes it through this entire shift, which hopefully,
Well,
they're
I
going
mean,
to
people
find,
sorry to interrupt you. You finish.
they're going to find people like us and people like Anglantine and people like Doug Ernst and that our group, and we're actually going to be the sort of anchors to geek culture that this next generation will have. Again, assuming that everything goes well and that we get feminism the fuck out of the positions of power it finds itself in now.
Yeah.
I hope.
I mean, just because something's rare doesn't mean it's necessarily valuable. I mean, you could
Yeah.
you could speculate that it's going to be valuable 10, 15 years from now, but I don't know. I think quality is also a part of it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just saying though is that
It's fun. I
you
mean,
never know what is actually going to become valuable, because like I said, one of the most valuable comics in my collection right now is actually an old hardbound one-off of some web comic from like over 10 years ago that's signed by the artist and author, and the only reason it's valuable is because like out of nowhere 10 odd years later they're making a Jennifer Lopez movie out of it.
well, yeah, a movie would definitely increase in value. But here's the thing: that's not the first like appearance of America Chavez. There have been other America Chavez comics before that absolutely horrible run. Like I don't see any of these characters getting movies personally because these they didn't even sell in the comics. I don't think they're gonna sell in a movie. But
Unless they
you do
change
never
a
know.
bunch of shit.
Yeah, they have to change a bunch of it to be unrecognizable, and I don't think that would result in the comics that they changed it away from increasing in value. But
No, I think the best bet for these things being valuable in the future is going to be the so bad it's good. Oh my god, look how terrible this. It's basically going to
here's the
be
thing.
the next generation Linkara that's going to profit off of all this shit, is what's going
Well,
to
yeah,
happen.
here's the thing, Dalton. Digital comics already exist. So you can get like a digital of the comic for not that much money. But even if like we enjoy something that's bad, like The Room or Plan 9, do you honestly would you honestly pay a couple $100 for it?
Some very eccentric collector would, though, and that's the point. I would not, but some very eccentric collector would. It would, and that's the market there.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're right. Uh, Tyler, do you want to share your opinion?
Let's see. Yeah, I think my unpopular opinion. I'd only consider to be unpopular with the people who or the group within, as it's called, the quote unquote geek culture, who disagree with it. Um, I've been most unhappy with the recent push for quote unquote representation and diversity, not necessarily those, not necessarily those concepts, but the disingenuousness of it. Because as someone who started, I didn't start actually collecting comics until like 4 years ago. Like I bought my first comic in 2015. But before then, I didn't grow up with comics because one, I didn't have a comic book store like anywhere near my neighborhood or anywhere in the area. But I grew up with the television shows and the animated movies. The Batman animated movies, and I used to watch Justice League all the time. I watched I was watching X-Men. I was watching all these shows, and I didn't really care about, like, race was never something that stuck out to me as something that I need. I didn't need the race of a character to be mine in order to relate to them. I mean, this really speaks about relativity, because I don't like I don't. I mean, like, as a kid, you don't really. I'll say 99% of kids who watch TV, or at least in my era, I'll say, as who are as young as me, when we were kids, when we were watching shows like X-Men, and we were watching Batman, like, we didn't really care what the characters looked like. We certainly didn't care about race. I know I didn't. Um,
I
and
don't
so
think I don't think that counts as an unpopular opinion. Certainly not in our group, because I
yeah,
think
well,
we're
I
all
said,
on
well,
that.
I was prefacing saying the only people who'd have a problem with are the ones who within the fandom who disagree. But I know, I'm almost certain. I know at least two other people on this stream have echo my same sentiments. But
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. But my point is, I don't think any of the people watching are gonna disagree with that. So I don't think they're gonna qualify that as an unpopular opinion.
But
In our
and
segment of the geek culture, that's kind of a duh.
right, but that's
Like,
not
yeah.
the only thing is that's not the sentiments being echoed by the industry. Like, I mean, if we go back to 2015 when I started collecting comics, this was I'm reading on all these on these comic book websites and articles and stuff, about covering the industry, and all I'm hearing about is how the big two, but Marvel more so, claiming to begin making this push for having more, more diversity and inclusiveness and representation and yada yada yada, which ultimately came out to be two things. Number one, all these buzz terms really mean it's just titles that didn't have like a white character or a straight white male character as as the lead, obviously.
Cater to our ideology specifically.
Right. Right, absolutely. And I'm thinking to myself, and this is just me, I don't really care the ratio as far as how many characters Marvel has that are white versus, how many characters they have, how many heroes or villains that they have that are of this race or that race. It doesn't really make a difference to me. I'm someone who's just attracted to, number one, art style and story. And not only that, but another thing that bothers me is, to me, race swapping or changing the original ethnicity or race of a certain character, to me, it insults my intelligence. I mean, we've seen that, we've seen that with a couple examples in recent years, but it's the fact that they think that's what someone like me, because I'm 10% of the U.S. population. I read comics, but apparently I can't relate to a character unless they look like me, or I have a problem with the current ratio, the current race ratio of characters that are under a certain banner is absolute bogus to me.
Preaching to the choir on that one. I'm gay and disabled, and apparently height can also count as a disenfranchisement now too, according to an article I found earlier today. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, demographic boxes are not what make a character.
No.
Personalities, interests, and like philosophies are what make a character.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's really gonna come against this opinion.
I was gonna say, I still don't think this qualifies as what we would consider a controversial opinion. If you were defending it, that would be a more controversial opinion in this.
But it seems it's obviously an unpopular opinion amongst many people who work, well, not just people who are hired by Marvel, but the management. I mean, we got you got CB Cebulski and Amanat, and at one point Joe Quesada, although he got fired.
I swear to God, Amanat is purposely trying to kill Marvel.
Absolutely.
But even then, it's not just a controversial opinion to them. To them, what you just said, and what I just said is straight up immoral. That's the thing. This isn't a matter of opinion in their mind. It's a matter of morality in their minds because of the ideology they have. Like, this is why when you or Mr. E says, I don't need a character to be black in order for it to be compelling, they go, you have internalized oppression and plantation mentality. And when I say I don't need a character to be gay to find them relatable, and I don't like demographics just as a measuring stick, period, they go, you're just internalized homophobic, just like Milo Yiannopoulos. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but it's not a matter of opinion in their mind. In the industry today, it's a moral caste system, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what they would consider a matter of opinion. It's a matter of, if you believe X, Y, and Z, you are moral. If you do not believe X, Y, and Z, or if you believe the opposite of X, Y, and Z, you are immoral.
Right.
That's why
All right.
That's why this.
But here's the. Can I just say this? Can I just say one more thing?
real quick.
The thing, and I know this for a fact. This is what would happen if I were to make this point in like a conversation with somebody that would disagree. If they were to come on YouTube, if they were to see or watch one of these live streams that I was on, and they saw my avatar and they see that it's Black Panther, they would assume that I'm being disingenuous, or that I'm just saying what I'm saying to be contrarian, or like to your point that I have internalized oppression or whatever.
Yeah,
But I'm not.
whiteness,
But
basically.
right, but what they don't understand is that T'Challa, a character like the Black Panther, those are just characters that regardless of race, those are just characters that I'm drawn to. Like I made this point. I made this point in past live stream. I think it was when we were on England Team's channel when he did a live stream. I think it was the Monica Rambeau video, and I came on and I was telling you guys that I gravitate towards characters who are cut from that who are cut from the same cloth as the Bruce Wayne, Tony Stark archetype, and T'Challa is of that archetype, the everyman. Like I'm also attracted to characters who are who are very technically proficient fighters, because I'm a fight fan. I love boxing, I love MMA, love wrestling. So guys that are very very lethal in combat, or who are the best fighters in their universe. I like characters like that. So it's not a race thing. I mean, T'Challa could be if he was white or Hispanic, like if he was a white character of some fictional nation in
Crap. Hold on.
That phone must be nearby.
Yeah. But yeah, I have a lot of the same thing. Like I'm an occultist. I've been an occultist for 13 years now, and so one of the things that I like about comics is they treat magic with a certain level of seriousness that most other mediums, especially fantasy shows and novels today, just straight up
All right,
don't.
guys, let's wrap up this discussion so we can move on to another topic.
Yeah.
All right, it's my turn. My unpopular opinion is, like I said before the stream, I don't like Wally West.
Shame on you.
Expound, please.
I was playing.
Yeah, I'm just kidding too.
Yeah, allow me to explain. I know a lot of people grew up with Wally West, that Wally West was their Flash for like their generation, like when they were kids and stuff. But I started reading comics when I was like 15, 14. I started reading comics right after Final Crisis. Remember what happened in Final Crisis?
Hmm.
You can fill me in. I haven't read that yet, but actually,
Barry
one
Allen.
of my classmates actually has that. Actually has that novel. I
Right.
should
So
she has.
in Final Crisis, Barry Allen got brought back into the DC universe, and I came in right after that happened. And then they had Flash Rebirth, which he was the center of, and then they launched a new Flash series starring Barry. So for me, Barry Allen was the Flash that I got into comics with. And even back when I was, reading older comics, one of the first things I read was the Flash Showcase, Volume 1, which is like the collection of the Silver Age comics, which Barry, of course, was the star of. So for me, Barry Allen is the Flash. And I tried reading some Wally stuff, but I just didn't like it as much.
Is there anything particular about Wally that you dislike relative to Barry?
I just felt like Barry, Wally was just too similar to Barry, because Barry Allen was a forensic scientist, and then Wally was a forensic scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Allen was the fastest man alive in the Flash, and then after he was gone, Wally West took up the mantle, which I know makes sense, but for me, it's just like
You can't distinguish the two.
You're living this character's living in the other one's shadow, basically.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, essentially.
I don't like that either. I mean, I can actually agree with you on that point, even though I do like Wally West, but
And even a lot of his villains were like the Rogues were originally Barry's villains. I know that some of the other ones, like the Thinker, were originally him. But as far as villains go, I always prefer the Rogues. And even Zoom was just his version of essentially the Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well, there
I
are
agree.
there are. I mean, I know there are people out there. I know there are comic fans out there who they don't the concept of their of the quintessential, whether it be Flash or Batman or whatever their favorite character, the concept of them of their character passing the mantle to to another character or another character who dons whatever, whether it's the suit or the emblem or whatever, and that character being virtually indistinguishable. Yeah, that, I mean, and for me that's kind of a pet peeve of mine too, because then I think that's why I think Batman worked what worked well with Batman is because we got, when you have Nightwing and Red Hood, Damian, and I know, obviously Terry McGinnis was created, with the television show. He's not an original character from the comics, but they're all distinguishable, at least through my eyes. I can tell they're not the same character. All of them were prodigies of
Yeah,
Batman, and but they're all different though. They're not an exact reflection of Bruce Wayne, which is
yeah. I
brilliant. I think
liked
that's the way it should be.
when
They're
Dick Grayson took up the mantle of Batman. I actually didn't mind it and liked it because he was a different kind of
right.
Batman
Right. He's a different kind
to
of Batman.
Bruce.
That's right.
And when he had
Um,
Damian Wayne as Robin, it was kind of reversing the roles between him and Bruce. He was the more lighthearted one, the one who smiled,
Hmm.
and Damian was the more serious one.
Yeah.
this is actually a perfect segue to what my next controversial opinion was going to be. So if you don't mind, um,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that taking a character that was originally an individual and making it a mantle is the first sign of a downturn for most characters. You look at characters like Captain America. You look at characters like Dr. Fate. Um, you look at characters like Batman to a lesser extent, but it's still palpable. When you take a character whose original origin was as an individual and you make that character a mantle instead, you cheapen what that character is, and often it leads to changes to the mythos that ultimately overall weaken the character.
Mhm.
So, is there ever a time where you think a mantle being passed was done really well?
The only time I've seen mantles work is if those mantles are expanded rather than passed. Like, for example, I really loved Golden Age Green Lantern Alan Scott, but I have absolutely zero problems with the Silver Age and onward Green Lantern because it made a certain level of sense, and also it wasn't a one-to-one ratio because, of course, the original Green Lantern powers were magic-based, and the current order of lanterns is cosmic based. When it's something like that, that works. When it's um, when it's something like you can just take Dr. Fate's helm and put it on, and suddenly you're Dr. Fate. When it's Daniel Hall taking over for Dream of the Endless, despite being basically just a demigod trying to fill in for an abstract entity who rules over the entire multiverse. When it's stuff like that, it's always cancer, and it always leads to more and more deconstruction down the road at some point.
Yeah, I actually did have a problem with Jay Garrick because he had his own villains for one thing. His costume was much different. He was originally from an alternate universe, and even when he came in, like he didn't try and take over as the main Flash. He was kind of one of the elder statesmen
Yeah.
superheroes.
The example of this though by far and away has to be Cap. When
I'm
Captain
so glad we're
America
talking
was
about this.
when Captain America was made, there was absolutely no wiggle room for him to be a character that you could even pass the mantle of. And yet, despite having no like super soldier serum or anything, so many characters have just been able to take up the mantle despite not reflecting any of the qualities that Steve Rogers had originally that made him a good candidate for Captain America.
Yeah. Professor Pixel in the chat brings up Miles Morales. Now, the thing about Miles is that he was in the Ultimate Universe originally when he took over for Ultimate Peter Parker. So we still had original Peter Parker in the main 616 universe. So that really didn't conflict all that much.
And it didn't require taking Peter's powers away from Peter to give them to Miles. He just had other means of obtaining those powers.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on the point you the Dom made on Captain America? Since the ultimate goal, or I mean, I guess it happened recently when in the comics where Cap does pass the mantle to Sam Wilson. As I'm finding out about this, as Sam Wilson is now, he's the new Captain America, and all these and you got all these titles coming out. I'm thinking to myself, okay, the reason why, in a way it should be a big deal, not necessarily because Sam Wilson is black, but because I've only ever known one Captain America, and that's Steve Rogers. So the problem for me is, like, what is Sam Wilson's like defining title or comic series? He's just a character that I don't really know anything about. I didn't know anything about him from any of the TV shows I watched, or or anything like that. It's just I've always known him to be, as he was Falcon when he was first created, as a sidekick to Captain America. Like he has yet to become his own character, and he's a character that's been around since the 60s. But again, there's very little to the mythos, his own mythos, that people know about. And now to just have Cap hand the mantle over to him as Captain America. Number one, it's disingenuous because number one, I guess, and the reason why I feel is disingenuous is because it happened right in the middle of the so-called diversity push. Had this happened maybe in the 90s or early 2000s or something like that, I think it would have been a lot. I think it would have been a lot more. It was a lot more organic.
But
it just doesn't feel organic.
The Captain America has been a mantle pretty much since the 90s, because that was sort of when the sort of deconstructive wave went through for the first time, and Cap lost faith in the American government and chose to give up the shield for a bit. And then
I remember an issue. That's what it went to. I think the character's name was John Walker. Originally, he was going by the name Super Patriot, and then the government tapped him to become Captain America for a short time. But yeah. So that was your opinion, Dalton. So Dion, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I guess for my other unpopular opinion involves the character Naomi in DC's Wonder Imprint. And I'd say the first 4 issues of that miniseries is not bad. And although when DC announced that they're extending it from 6 to 12 issues, I'm still iffy on that decision, because I don't think that's really necessary.
I haven't been reading that series, so I don't know much to say about it, but I do know that Eglinton really likes the character.
Yeah, and I guess like what helps the series of Naomi is the artwork. I really love like how the characters and the locations are designed, and how it captures the lighting and the colors. But I do critique on the writing because there's just way too much much dialogue, which is one of Bendis's issues. And I thought when he left Marvel for DC, he wouldn't have to work. He would like break out that habit, and he won't have to worry about someone looking over his shoulders. But it looks like he's on like repeating the same bad habits instead of like playing into his strengths.
Bendis is going to introduce it into Action Comics soon. That was previewed.
So say that again.
Bendis is going to introduce his character Naomi into Action Comics, which I'm afraid this is just going to be Ruby Williams all over again.
Most likely. There's probably, I haven't read the comic either, but I'm willing to bet there's some parallels.
She's a god from an alternate universe. That's literally the origin of the character.
Wait, what?
I want to call her a god.
She's a godlike being from an alternate universe.
Explain, please, because I was not aware of that.
I was not either.
All right, so in her universe, some shit went down, and a bunch of people got incredible godlike powers. And she is the daughter of. All right, whenever doing that, can you just mute? Okay, she is the daughter of two of these people, and one of the people that got powers, was evil. He started killing the others and trying to take their powers. So they sent her to this world to try and get away from that. Essentially, it's kind of like a Superman origin, but extra dimensional instead of extraterrestrial.
Yeah, it was also mentioned and from the latest issue of Naomi that the reason that the people from her universe started to develop powers is a result of Crisis on Infinite Earths, or somehow like the energies from the energies that came from like the antimatter and everything else, from, like the cosmic tuning fork, it activated their metagenes.
Okay, if that happened, there should be way more metahumans on Earth Prime.
That's true. Yeah, but the last issue I didn't really like that much. The first four, they were not bad, but I just think like the concept of Naomi is interesting, but in terms of execution, it's still a mixed bag.
Telehem
I wouldn't really.
says Bendis is a villain writer.
There are a couple of those. There are a couple of those within the industry right now.
Yeah, but I want to call Naomi a Ruby Williams 2.0. Yeah, she's still fresh, so we can wait and see how she turns out and develops as a character.
If anything, she sounds a little bit more like a America Chavez 2.0.
Yeah, except she's not a lesbian.
Yet.
So speaking of America Chavez, like I like her before Marvel ditched her in their initiative after the events of Secret Wars.
Yeah, she was a bad character.
Yeah, and like they really screw like Joe Casey and Nick Dragotta over like how they treat her when they gave her to Gabby Rivera. I was like, like that's just a low blow. Like,
all right, so
I've said this multiple times. I said America Chavez is actually a decent. She's written actually pretty well by Al Ewing in his Ultimates run. I mean, all the characters were, even Captain Marvel. Like it's literally night and day between how he balances the dynamic between America Chavez and Carol Danvers, and as opposed to all the other characters, and how, like, say, a writer like Gabby Rivera or how they write her. It's obviously you can obviously distinguish the two, but it really comes down to who you put the what writer you put the character in the hands of.
I can agree to that, and you're not wrong. Like Al Ewing, he written Carol and America very well in Ultimates. it's a
All
very
right,
stark
guys.
contrast in the main titles.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next person. Cirsova had to step out for a minute, so Tyler, you're up again.
Let's see. Unpopular opinion. That was really the only thing that I brought to bat. I will say, I don't. Is it just me, or has the Joker kind of become sort of like I don't really think he has the same presence in comics these days as before. Like he's kind of become a joke to me.
He's become a shadow of his former self.
I think that's probably what's getting to me. And like I said, I read the first couple of issues I was reading of Batman Beyond. I didn't like the Joker at all. Well, for one, there were like multiple Jokers for one.
Well, the Joker is it's such a gang that likes the idea of the Joker.
Yeah, they're basically copycat criminals who are fanboys of his.
Right.
So wait until you read the There was an arc in Batman Beyond recently where the real Joker actually came back. Do you want to know what happens?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I stopped reading, and I actually do need to pick this back up. But I stopped reading that. Does it happen after issue 5? Like any
Yes.
like how
It
how
happens.
like
All right. So the original Joker comes back, and he murders all the fake Jokers.
okay. That's
Yeah, that definitely
sounds
screams
about right.
Joker.
Yep. Okay. Sorry. All right. So I take back what I just said. I really need to read that. I really need to get back on Batman Beyond.
Yeah, but I definitely get the feeling of what you're trying to say because did anybody read the Joker and Harley Quinn Batman wedding tie-in?
Yeah, it was not. It was probably one of the best of the tie-ins, but it still was not particularly great.
See, I actually didn't like it at all because essentially what it was just Harley Quinn tying up the Joker and just beating the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And it was just so stupid. Like, I'm sorry, there's no way that. I mean, I know your DC Comics is trying to puff up Harley for some reason, but there's no way in hell that she's getting the drop on the Joker. I'm sorry, that's just not happening. Not unless you've got a terrible fucking writer.
She was kind of doing that. Well, yeah, but she was doing a lot of that. Whoever it was, right in her recent solo run.
God, don't even get me started.
I can't remember who was writing it though. But
for DC Rebirth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Amanda Connor.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, that's also who was doing the Starfire run, and Pope Fire freaking hates that much. I mean, I had her on last week, and she would not. And she told me in great detail how much she hates Amanda Connor's Starfire run.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
It's crazy because Amanda Connor is actually, she's also capable of writing some good stuff. Like I love her. I love it. Her Power Girl run, where her and Palmiotti is really solid, in my opinion. I don't know if any of you guys have read it, but it's a real solid run.
Yeah, I've read it, and I do really enjoyed it. And I liked her artwork on it too.
Yeah, art's fantastic.
Yeah, but I can understand why Pope Fire
World's
didn't
Finest
not
isn't
like her
that bad
Starfire
either.
run. And as far as Harley Quinn goes, I am sick of seeing her. I just want her to go away.
I am too.
Yeah, it's like DC is trying to make her their Deadpool, but that's not really. It doesn't really work. Harley, she's her own character. She's not Deadpool. I don't understand why DC keeps trying to pump her up as if she is.
Well, the same reason they're pumping
feminist icon works for them.
Yeah, trying to turn her into a feminist icon, which makes no sense because you already have one in Wonder Woman. Well, you have multiple, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They don't like Wonder Woman because she's too capable, beautiful, and competent. That's
every DC female character, though. They're all
Wonder Woman doesn't hate men enough.
Right. It's
Right,
the
yeah.
it's the current sort of lens of third wave feminism. In order to be truly feminist, you also have to subvert all of traditional femininity. So no sex appeal, no maternal instincts, no competence of any kind.
Like
You
literally being one of the most powerful characters in the entire universe is not good enough.
because she's too egalitarian. She doesn't
Right, yeah,
she's not a mouthpiece for the ideology. She's just there to exist and be capable and competent, and they don't
Yeah,
like that
well,
because
Wallace Harley can say that
capableness and
she
competence
was
are
in an abusive
contrast.
relationship with the Joker and used that to try and gain feminism points.
Yeah,
but
because
she's
if she,
insane, so it doesn't really. I mean, she keeps going back to him though. That's
be-
what that's what I understand.
because if she rises up from an abusive relationship, that means that she triumphed over her victimhood. With
Right.
Wonder Woman, there's no victimhood, and therefore there can be no oppressed or oppressed um dynamic, which is what modern feminism thrives on.
Okay.
But essentially, having her leave the Joker would make her sane, though.
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, yeah, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So if she leaves him, so she's always been known to, yeah, she's always been in an abusive relationship, but the status quo of Harley Quinn is that she keeps coming back, she keeps returning to the Joker.
Well, now she's in a lesbian relationship with Poison Ivy, which makes even less sense.
Right.
Except
But
in the feminist mindset, because women power and all that jazz.
And
yeah,
matter of fact, when the hell did Poison Ivy even become a lesbian? She wasn't one to
it kind of just
begin with.
it started happening gradually over time in like the late 2000s.
Yeah, I know it's recent. Yeah, I know it was recent.
No, I'm pretty sure it was hinted and explored in the past before the New 52, but that would make
Like I said, the late 2000s.
yeah and technically it would make Pamela bisexual, not a lesbian. Yeah, but
Well,
I don't mind her
the way she's being
relationship.
written, she certainly hates men enough. But I'm gonna move on. It's my turn next, and I gotta say, as much as I love this franchise, it's just a little bit too overblown right now. Some of the Green Lanterns need to die.
Yep.
I want names. I need names. Which ones?
Yeah, I can
First
agree.
off, first on the chopping block, well, my chopping block, Kyle Rayner.
What? Okay, that
I
I have to
liked him in
disagree.
Vendetti's run, though. I mean, well, he lost his ring. I mean, he lost his ring, but he was still. I mean, he wasn't useless though. But continue.
Yeah, Kyle Rayner is on the chopping block. And as much as I love this character, Guy Gardner's on the chopping block too.
I'm cool with that.
I disagree.
Kyle Rayner, I honestly never liked Kyle Rayner. Like I said, I get into comics in like mid 2000s, so this is when they had brought Hal Jordan back, and I tried to read some of Kyle's older stuff, and I just didn't like it. And then I found out that Ron Mars, a guy that I don't even like as a human being, uh, not only created Kyle Rayner, but also killed Hal Jordan in order to create Kyle Rayner. So he killed my favorite Green Lantern to create my least favorite one. So yeah, that's part of the reason why I call him the chopping block. But also he gets bullshit powers for no reason and then basically does nothing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like he got the White Lantern, but never really accomplished any like major game changing things within the larger DC universe. Like you have the power of life itself and you accomplish nothing.
Yeah, here's the powers of a god. What are you going to do with it? Oh, you're just going to do nothing? Okay.
Yeah, so Kyle Rayner, dead. And Guy Gardner, I love Guy Gardner's gruff fighter mentality, but he's a character that's been around long enough to where if he went on break, I wouldn't mind it. while Hal's currently in Green Lantern and John's currently in Justice League. But the reason I didn't include Simon Badge and Jessica Cruz is because they are new enough to where I
Right.
still want to see where those characters go.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
really did
did. I
love
actually enjoyed.
the Green
I
Lantern
enjoyed.
series where they were
Yeah.
partners.
Yeah.
yeah,
I loved it.
It's pretty good. That's real good. I like how they use Jessica Cruz. I like how they use both, but definitely Jessica Cruz and her battling with her anxiety.
hmm
That was good stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she also grew. She also grew a lot as a character before DC Rebirth started, and you get to see that as she comes her her trauma from her trauma, and also like trying. She's taking like small steps to overcome her fears.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Right.
yeah. That's a female character that they're definitely building the right way.
Yeah.
hmm
I know somebody here didn't like that I wanted to kill Kyle Rayner. Who was it?
That was me because I was like, well, I mean, you read Vendetti's uh run, right? I mean, Rayner was basically halfway dead. I mean, they didn't kill him, but I mean, like I said, he lost his ring to Hal. But I mean, it was kind of seeing him and Guy Gardner fight was. It was pretty. Yeah, I don't think he needs to die. It was like I kind of felt sorry for him near the end.
I I don't really feel all that sorry for him. I mean, he was the only Green Lantern in the universe for like years. So like I pretty much look. I'm over Kyle Rayner. I don't like him. I never really did, like I said. But yeah, definitely bring back Simon Bass and Jessica Cruz and make them partners again because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I
that
will
Green
say
Lantern's
this.
run. Oh, go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead, man. No, I was gonna say I think I do think it's time to no. Let's see. Jessica Cruz is in. She's in one of the she's in one of the Justice League books, correct?
Yeah, Justice League
She's in
Odyssey.
Justice League
Odyssey,
Odyssey.
right? Odyssey, yeah. I think like I stopped reading, and not because I didn't like it. It was just
Mhm.
because I wasn't able to when I was reading Green Lanterns, I wasn't able to keep up with all the. I wasn't able to keep purchasing all the titles that I was reading beforehand. But now would probably be a good time to move Simon Bays to another book, in my opinion. Like say, not necessarily make him the main Green Lantern. You don't have to do that, but I guess maybe move him on to like another Justice League team since they've already done with Jessica Cruz.
Well, I already have one on the original Justice League team. They have one in Odyssey, and I don't think Justice League Dark really would lend itself to a Green Lantern unless it's like Alan Scott.
True. Yeah, but the Green Lanterns run from DC Rebirth with Simon and Jessica, that was severely underrated, and I'm surprised that it didn't get that much attention. Yeah, I really
I
enjoyed that
was too.
series.
Personally, if they made like a Justice League International book and put Simon on it, that wouldn't be that bad.
Oh yeah, a new Justice League International series would be fun, but who would you put there for the creative team at writer and artist if they were to put Simon Baz in a Justice League team?
All right. And they also kind of teased that he might have a thing that they might end up becoming love interests like down the road at the end anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
I
thought
caught
that I
hints of
thought that's
that.
kind of nice. Yeah.
If I had to pick a creative team for it, it would be Dan Abnett and
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Kenneth Rockerford.
Oh that would be amazing.
Yeah. So that's my unpopular opinion. Dalton, do you have another one to share?
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dalton?
I think comics have been broken since the 90s.
Yeah, wasn't the '90s like the whole Liefeld era?
Well, the industry did almost die or was on life support. You know the
No, I should be slightly more specific. I think for Marvel the breaking point was Civil War 1, and I think for DC, the breaking point was Day of Vengeance. Ever since both of those storylines, it seems like there's been a downward spiral trajectory.
Day of Vengeance, that was the prelude to Infinite Crisis, right?
Was it the prelude or was it an element of Infinite Crisis?
No, it's a prelude to Infinite Crisis.
Okay, so yeah, and yes, I'm well aware that I'm probably biased because, two of my favorite characters were horribly mishandled in both of those storylines, and honestly, I think they really should have just let Naboo die, and not brought back Dr. Fate if they were going to stick it out, because everything that's happened to him since Day of Vengeance, it's just been a travesty on a travesty on a travesty. So
Yeah, it really made no sense to me in Day of Vengeance for the Spectre to be seduced by Eclipso of all people.
yeah,
Always trying to make Eclipso happen. I don't know. I just never liked Eclipso stories.
no, you're exactly right. It is very much like Fetch in Mean Girls. Stop trying to make it happen. It's not going to happen.
It's been a while since I've read Days of Vengeance, but as years pass, if I were to look back and read it again, I can tell that it did not age well, despite being a prelude to Infinite Crisis.
For the record, both of these stories, both of the ones I named, are really great stories. Day of Vengeance is a really good story and everything, but that is the essence of the problem. All of these willful deconstructions start because they happened once and were done really well. In the case of Dr. Fate, it was Day of Vengeance. In the case of Strange, it was his Strange Tales Volume 2 that he shared with Cloak and Dagger. In the case of Constantine, I have issues with his run with the New 52, but every time it was done really well, and for some reason they never stopped doing it. It's the same problem with Alan Moore, like I mentioned earlier. He did it really well. He was very, very good at what he did, and what he did was deconstruct things. And so everyone decided that was the new status quo.
Yes.
And the problem with deconstruction being the status quo is, eventually, if you keep dissecting something, you're going to basically end up with nothing but dust if you don't stop at some point.
What if your dust is what they have now?
And they're still trying to pound it into a finer powder. They have pieces that are the size of like kosher salt, and they're still trying to get it down to like pickling salt size.
Okay, you're not wrong. Like I said, it's been a while since I've read Days of Vengeance. But I might give it another read when I haven't had another chance. But you are not wrong with. I mean, people are tired with these deconstructions. Like it's not inherently a bad idea, but if you keep doing it multiple times, it's like people just gonna get sick and tired of it, and people want a reconstruction of the superheroes and what makes them them.
Deconstruction is useful if a status quo becomes too stale or becomes too normal. If there's no entropy left in it.
I agree.
But the purpose of deconstruction is the artistic equivalent of what dissection is good for in science. You deconstruct and dissect so that you can figure out what the essence of this thing is, whether it's the essence of a story or the essence of a frog, so that you can have a better understanding of it, and then hopefully at some point reconstruct it to make the character better. A perfect example of reconstruction done properly is a Neil Gaiman's Run of the Sandman. Rather than pick and choose which bits of the Sandman history he wanted to keep and which bits he didn't want to keep, he basically created a scenario in which all the aspects of the Sandman that DC had had over 3 iterations could be canon, and then he added more to it in the form of Dream of the Endless and that whole mythos. And surprise, surprise, it became one of the greatest comics ever written.
I guess
And
another
remains
example.
one of the greatest comics ever written.
I guess another example of a decon reconstruction switch is The Incredibles. That was in my opinion.
Yeah. So, Dion, do you have an unpopular opinion?
I don't. It wasn't really an unpopular opinion. I was just saying like another good example of a decon reconstruction switch is The Incredibles because
I mean, I know that was an unpopular opinion. I'm asking, do you have an unpopular opinion?
oh, that's a good question. I might have to think. I might have to think on that. So you could like skip ahead.
All right. Cirsova, do you have an unpopular opinion?
Well, I got into a bit of a disagreement with one of my friends who actually does some comic writing about narration. He's sort of the school of thought that the less narration, the better, because like he'll point to some of the stuff from the Silver Age, and yeah, some of that stuff is just real clunky, but I think that if done right, narration's really good at pacing a story and artwork, because there are a lot of comics today, I feel like, that you sit down with them, you're done with them in like 4 or 5 minutes, and even when there's good art, you don't really stop to appreciate it because there's not enough story going on with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I do know that there are a lot of people out there who's like, no, the old ways are bad. All that narration was just garbage. The less, the better. Just tell it through the pictures and dialogue. But honestly, I miss the classic sort of narration, and not necessarily like Batman talking to himself throughout the whole issue. Like sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But like actually like saying this is what's happening, this is what's going on.
Yeah, it adds to providing context, I think, is the
it paces things too.
And tone too.
Yeah,
Yes.
in the same way it would in a novel. Like a lot of the best aspects of, like, for example, the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit are stuff that Tolkien would say as like a sidebar to the reader. And I think there's value in that occasional sidebar to the reader, especially to provide context and tone to things and atmosphere.
Yeah, I think. I agree. I think comic books today could use a little bit more narration because I mean, like I got some to your point, like I got some Image comics, some Gen 13 comics. I mean, I know like the art is absolutely phenomenal, but the story is very it looks very convoluted. There's not much story going on, but I mean, you need a balance of the two. Because I'm honestly not one of those people that can just and this is just me, that I don't do well with comic books that are just all art and really no and hardly any subtitles or
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree to that. You gotta have a balance between art and narration because
I think
it's not any different as a
the narration
novel.
could use an increase, but I think the dialogue could use a decrease because right now there's like way too many word balloons in certain comics nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I hadn't read any Bendis stuff until the Batman universe because I was buying the Batman Giants, and oh my gosh, he writes Batman like it's a who's on first joke. There are places where like you could see that they actually lettered it wrong because it doesn't matter who's saying it. It's just like words to say the words.
Mhm.
It also depends on the character, because some characters should be more
Yeah, you got
long-winded
some
about the way
characters
they
that are
say
about the
things.
banter, and sometimes it really works. Like one of the books where that really works, I think, right now is Terrifics. Like they've got the stuff between Plastic Man and
Yeah, that makes sense because
Metamorpho down.
those characters play off of each other. They're like going back and forth, and also as a team, they have to communicate with one another.
Yeah.
So them talking more actually makes sense. But like for some books, it's just like clunky like dialogue that could have been cut down or even not included at all.
It's also not even necessarily banter, in my opinion, for some characters. Like characters like Dream of the Endless, for example, should be speaking in relative paragraphs when they really get going, because these are epic characters who pride themselves on like their erudition, kind of their intellectualism. So characters who are more intellectually centric should be talking more, saying more at least. But characters who are brawlers or fighters or whatever don't need to be delivering speeches every time they open their mouths. I don't even think it's necessarily about banter as so much as it is dialogue is a big part of what makes a character a character. I've often said that if you are writing Doctor Strange without ever having to reference a thesaurus, you are not effectively writing Doctor Strange.
Who's
but
echoing?
Sorry, I gotta mute myself right quick.
okay. Yeah, but I think it has more to do with dialogue should be an extension of the character. Not every character should have the same speaking style or the same voice. And that's the other thing. I think with the dialogue being as cancerous as it is currently, they've tried to give every character the same voice. There's no character specific dialogue.
Yeah, I don't get why is that? I mean, every individual is different from one another, and which means like dialogue and like their perspective of the world, they're different from everyone else. But people find common ground despite those differences.
You want my personal opinion on it? My personal opinion on it is because in the minds of the people that are currently writing these books, the characters are no different, because they have no respect for the medium or respect for the universes they're writing in. It's exactly the same bullshit argument that often gets thrown at comic book movies. They're all the same, herder. There's no defining qualities that make one kind different than any other kind, so we can just make all of them the same because that's what people want, right? No, you're ignoring all the shit that makes them distinct and different. Therefore, fuck off. Yeah, it's kind of this elitism of, oh, I'm slumming at writing comic books, therefore I don't have to put any effort in because it's not like effort was ever put in originally. And then we all collectively scream at them because, of course, there was effort put in originally, and comics are a artistic, a form of artistic expression and a medium in their own right. So you have to treat them with the same respect as you would any other kind of art.
All right, so the next step is Tyler. Do you have another unpopular opinion?
I think. Okay, well, my unpopular opinion is I'm not. I wasn't until up until recently. I was not a fan of comics that were uh, books that were basically about where the main character was a detective. But I mean, but recently my perspective on that has changed because normally when you're dealing, see, I've always been an action adventure guy. You know, I only need when it comes to comics. You know, I only need so much dialogue, and like I said, and I need a lot of action. But about 2 years ago, you know, so I thought any comic book, like when I first started collecting them, anyone that had a lot of dialogue in it was you know, was boring, or I lose interest in it regardless of who the character was. But just recently I was reading I read Scott Snyder's All Star Batman, and I feel like I feel like I'm just telling a story, but this ties into my point. Um, the first couple of issues, it's basically it's the first Batman comic I ever read where it was literally Batman being a detective. So he's talking a lot to himself. He's on every other issue. He's solving. He's on a mission or he's solving some sort of crime, but it's not being told in like quick quick word bubbles or whatever. You have to the way Snyder writes it, you're inside the mind of Batman. He's talking to himself. He's breaking all these things down, breaking all these clues down, and it really, although it's very lacking in action in most of the issues, you really gain an appreciation for that character and how that character thinks and what makes them so much different. Like, and perhaps if it had been any other time, like if it wasn't a Batman comic, if it was just like some I don't know some random or other obscure character, I probably wouldn't have given it the time of day. But I mean, Batman's tagline is "World's Greatest Detective," and of all the Batman comics that I've read, that one right there kind of I think brought that element to the forefront more than any other comic I've read. The first couple of issues I read, I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, this is boring. Nothing's happening. He's just talking to himself." But no, I stuck with it. I stuck it out, and all the way to issue 10. And I've gained a greater appreciation for the character. I mean, also it's great writing when I look back. It's really great writing. I've read through the series since then, so since I finished it. So yeah, I have greater appreciation for Batman in that vein, and for like I said, and for titles that, like I said, aren't very action heavy, that are dialogue heavy, but in a sense that up until I read that series, I probably wouldn't have given had it not been Batman, I probably wouldn't have given it the time of day. But that just goes to show what great writing can do.
Movie?
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to read Scott Snyder's All-Star Batman, but I heard a lot of good things about it. But after hearing about it from you,
Dion,
I'm gonna give it a
you might
shot.
want to go inside because we can hear birds chirping.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. It's from my backyard.
All right, so
The birds apparently have unpopular opinions too.
yeah, so I'm gonna go next.
Okay.
Yeah, well, hold on. Let me mute myself for a minute so I could be somewhere where you won't hear the birds all the time.
All right. All right, we're gonna wait for Dion. But yeah, I gotta say, um, personally, I like detective stories. They're my favorite genre of novel. So whenever I get to see a comic book character be kind of a detective, it's always good for me. And that's actually the kind of story that I'm actually currently writing for my own comic.
Mhm.
Like it's gonna be a detective story, but I don't want it to have too much dialogue. I feel like only at the end when everything's solved or something should there be a lot of dialogue.
Summation.
Yeah.
The elementary My Dear Watson scene, basically.
Yeah, when everybody's in the parlor and the detective's there and he explains who did it, how, and why.
That reminds me, I cannot wait for the for Murder on the Nile, the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, because that movie was awesome.
I have actually not seen the movie. I've read the book. And unfortunately, while I was reading the book, somebody spoiled the ending.
You would really, I suspect, like the movie. It's very stylized in like a early 1900s or like 1920s way, and it's beautiful. And also, I gotta say, I've seen the original movie, and I have to say I like Kenneth Branagh's Poirot better than the original Poirot.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, that's good. So my unpopular opinion is that I prefer Jeff Johns' Teen Titans to New Teen Titans. It's, Jeff Johns' Teen Titans were Cassie Sandsmark, Wonder Girl, Tim Drake, Robin, Connor Kent, the Boy, Bart Allen, Kid Flash, and then some of the older Titans like Raven, Starfire, and Beast Boy were there in the beginning, but after that, like the team went through various iterations. But yeah, I like that run better than New Teen Titans.
I like Jeff Johns' run. I like Jeff Johns' run of Teen Titans, and I actually followed that all the way until 2011 when Flashpoint came about. But at the same time, when I read Marv Wolfman and George Perez's a new Teen Titans, I gained an appreciation of the history of the characters and like how they all started before Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run came to be.
I like it because you I like those characters and getting to see them grow and evolve. Cassie evolved from someone who was pretty unsure of herself into a very capable and great leader, and Connor Kent went from someone who was very cocky all the time to someone who is deals with self-doubt and the trouble of knowing where you came from, and to someone who could potentially be Superman, the world's greatest hero someday. And Bar Allen changed from hyperactive, even for a speedster kid that nobody took seriously and nobody who believed he could be a hero, to someone who genuinely upheld the legacy of the Flash. And I liked watching those characters evolve, and it was great because oftentimes they would tackle things that were a bit too much for them, like when like one of their first adventures, freaking Deathstroke came in and kneecapped Bart Allen.
Oh, I remember that scene. That was very graphic, and it just like it made me like feel for Bart and also like wince because I can imagine like the gunshot from a shotgun as he shot Bart in the knee. Like, oh
Yeah.
dang.
Yeah, I could hear that panel. But, yeah, that fun. Yeah, things like that like fundamentally changed the character. After that, he realized that he didn't know nearly enough and that he wasn't taking things seriously. So what did he do? He speed read the entire San Francisco Public Library.
I thought that was an awesome moment from Bart because this is like his transition from Impulse to Kid Flash. Because like he's matured like very quickly.
Well, you got to think about all the time it would take to read the entire library. He's not just reading; he's probably also reflecting. And
also processing the information.
Yeah, because Bart Allen actually he remembers everything that he speeds reads.
Mm-hmm.
Because other speedsters they read it, they hold on to it, and then they forget. But Bart Allen, he'll remember everything. And then they also had to deal with the loss of Superboy after Final Crisis.
No, it was Infinite Crisis, not Final Crisis.
Infinite Crisis. They had to deal with the loss of Superboy.
Damn crises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One to make it count.
That's why it's really sad to see those characters being handled by Bendis of all people in the current Young Justice comic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like all the character
really
development and everything that they went through down the drain for the sake of Bendis.
I might have to read I have to start reading Young Justice just see how bad it is. Can I just say that I know it's not a comic, but I thought Connor Kent's arc in season 1 of the TV show was fantastic.
Yeah, but that wasn't really the Connor Kent from the comics because that Superboy was way too angry.
Well, he started out like that, but it was really from I mean, but we understood why. It was from one, not knowing who he was and being manipulated by Luthor, into thinking that he was it's a this weapon, and not knowing his dad Superman, because obviously he was a clone, but again he progresses through that first season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Luthor manipulating Connor, that was a call. That was a callback. Callback again. Jeff Johns run Teen Titans, like outsiders and insiders. And so it's where he was mind controlling Connor
yeah. He
through
almost killed
mental
all the teen,
commands.
he almost killed the Teen Titans.
Yeah, and same thing happened to Indigo. Indigo of the Outsiders, when she learns that she's actually Brainiac 8.
So yeah, that's my opinion on Teen Titans. So next up is Dalton. If you have another opinion you want to share.
I do, actually. I think we need a moratorium on two kinds of stories. We need a moratorium on world-ending stories, and we need a moratorium on slice-of-life stories. What we need is the stories that are in the middle, the ones that keep getting overlooked, the personal stories. I made a pitch for this a while ago, in regards to Doctor Strange. I think the best thing for him at this point would be a series called Doctor Strange House Calls. That's just him going through his day-to-day life as the Sorcerer Supreme and actually using his powers, but not on big world-ending threats like Dormammu or Galactus or anything. Just like the average demonic possession or the average exorcism that he would have to do or something like that. And I think a lot of characters could benefit from that right now because it
I
seems
think
like
I think Hawkman is a good example of that. It's an
yeah,
adventure
Yeah.
story and it's centered around Hawkman, but it's not like earth shattering or anything. But it's still really fun the way it's written.
yeah,
And they also
it seems
and they basically retconned the origin in issue 7, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, but they made it in a way
well,
that
I
makes
don't know how much
sense.
I don't know how much they retconned it. I think they just cleaned it up a little bit. But I think a
Well,
lot of characters could benefit from that sort of same do stories that have like personal impact rather than worldly or universal impact and actually just have the character doing the thing they're supposed to be doing because what happens in this day and age is you oscillate really between three types of stories. You oscillate between the oh my god the world is ending event stories and you also have the slice of life stories where literally nothing happens and the fighting is entirely the fact that the character's a superhero is entirely incidental. If you're gonna do a slice of life story, it should be a slice of their life, of that particular character's life. Because that actually is somewhat interesting. I think towards the beginning of Rebirth, they did that with John Constantine. He was depowered slightly, so he kind of went around just doing his own thing and discovering sort of the mystical aspects of London and New York. And that was actually a really good arc for him because it let us see a slice of life story, if you want to call it that, but it was a slice of the life of John Constantine, who is a very interesting individual. And that's the thing I think a lot of people miss about doing slice of life stories with superheroes. Their life is, or if you're doing it right, their life should be dissimilar from the average person's life. Don't focus on the things that make them like everyone else. Focus on the things that make them unique. Like for example, what does Doctor Strange do when there is no big world-ending threat, but there's still like he's still the Sorcerer Supreme and still has to do basically what amounts to his day job? Or what does Superman do when he's just, going around helping people with random
there
crimes and
was
stuff rather
there
than
actually was a couple of Superman's life of life issues. It's where he was being a father to John, and he had to
Mm-hmm.
train John how to use his powers, but he had to learn that the ways that his father taught him aren't going to work for John because John is his own person.
Yeah.
And those were really great issues.
Yeah, or with Cap. I'd honestly love to see a story where Steve Rogers or a series of stories where Steve Rogers Captain America is just going around and being Captain America, as opposed to either, oh no, he lost the super soldier serum because of some arbitrary reason, or oh no, the world is ending and it ties into this big colossal event thing. No, I just kind of want to see him do what he's supposed to do. And that's one of the things we've lost in modern comics, is there are no the hero just doing what they're doing anymore. There's no, they do slice of life, but they do it in the most banal or bane way they possibly
And
can. They
mundane.
they forget the unique lives that superheroes by definition have to lead. And I want to see that come back. I want to see personal stories. And if you want to do slice of life, do slice of life, but have the person in the book actually have an impact on the kind of life they live, as opposed to, well, no, they just do random everyday things.
Yeah. That's really one of the things that's killing me with some Marvel titles.
Yeah.
I'd actually be down for if they were to do a Captain America series where it was like him. Like if they were, this is the only thing that I would advocate for. If they were to play off the ending of Endgame, but not exactly like, but I don't mean like not an extension of Endgame where I'd say where he goes back in time and marries Peggy. But I mean giving us a series off that premise where he no longer has, where he doesn't have the super soldier serum, or something to that effect. I'd be down for that.
Kind
I
of
would
a
want to
what
see
if
what he
story, like,
does.
what if Steve had married Peggy Carter or something?
Yeah. I guess that's
here's
what
the
I'm saying.
thing.
Yeah, a what if series, I guess.
What I would be interested in seeing is how Steve Rogers decides to have his own life, but what does he do when he sees something right in front of him?
Right. Yeah.
Because Steve Rogers, like, even if he doesn't want to be Captain America anymore, his morals and values aren't going away.
Right. And he still has military, like he still has training, like he still has military training.
So, like, say someone's being hurt right in front of him, he doesn't want to be Captain America anymore, but what is he, Steve Rogers, the citizen, going to do?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Dion, do you have an opinion you want to share?
I guess what. Well, I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion. Yeah, but I can say is how publishers are dealing with the artists or how they deal with artists and writers when they go out of line and actively and antagonize readers and fans, or like they don't really consider the critiques that are given to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one of those examples is Max Bemis, when he was put on for Moon Knight. When I read the first few issues, I enjoyed them. I thought it was continuing off where Jeff Lemire left off with the character. But then when he starts antagonizing the readers and fans who just started getting into the series as well as the characters, it just turned people off, and it does have an effect on how it sells.
Well, this type of thing certainly didn't spring up just out of nowhere. There had to have been a certain point in time where a lot of writers within the industry, or people who work within the industry, there started to be there was this level of pushback that started brewing as in terms of critiquing. It probably, and I'd say if you had to pick a certain time, it probably happened around the time when social media was became prominent, like first of all MySpace, and then Facebook and Twitter. So I'd say that's probably where it started, because now you're more you're more you're more connected to fans than ever. So and you're getting, and they can obviously, blog. There are all sorts of blogs and sites or whatever, and people are giving their opinions. And I'm guessing I'm guessing that probably had something to do with it. The fact that you're now more connected to fans than ever. That does have some blowback.
Yeah, yeah. It also allows you to hear different voices and perspectives of where people are coming from. Or if they have like an issue or critique with the series, or how the characters are being handled. And well, it's true. You can't please everyone, but you can at least like consider what everyone is saying, and learn from them in the long run.
Yeah,
And how
whether people actually have an argument or they're just whining.
yeah,
And nor should you try to. You shouldn't be trying to please everyone, because it's impossible.
yeah, exactly.
With a single story, you can't do that.
No, but you should also be allowed to listen to people's criticisms, and
Yeah.
because it it is very possible that sometimes as a creative you get a little bit in your own head, and
No, yeah,
somebody
of course,
needs
of course.
Mhm.
somebody needs to drag you out of there sometimes.
Yeah, I don't really think this is an unpopular opinion.
No, I don't think so either. I think this is a little bit like Tyler's one from earlier. I think this is, at least in this community, this is
All right.
a given.
So let's
Yes.
move on. Cirsova, do you have a unpopular opinion you want to share?
Actually, I was putting out some fires on the home front here, so I'm a little bit behind on stuff, so I'll have to pass for now.
All right. Tyler, do you want to share?
I actually think that this goes back to what I was talking about Falcon. I actually think Falcon could be a really interesting character, but but I think it just depends on the writer. Because let me get your opinions. Like, do y'all think Falcon is whack?
Kinda. I was never a big Falcon fan.
I've never seen any great Falcon stories, but that doesn't mean they're not out there. It just means that he's not really in my he's not mystical or cosmic, so he's kind of out of my
Right.
wheelhouse.
I appreciate Falcon as a but I would say I'm a huge fan, but I do like Falcon as a character, and I do have mixed feelings on like how writers handle
Mhm.
him in recent years.
I don't really find anything interesting about him as a hero. Like his powers is he has wings and he can fly. I mean, lots of characters can fly, and some other characters have wings. I don't really see anything unique about his abilities.
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When they took away his ability to talk to birds too, like, you can't. That's not part of the Falcon repertoire. Like, I mean, I get that.
When did they
Today's.
retcon that out? I did not know they had retconned that out.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I thought they kept that ability.
I don't believe the current Falcon doesn't have that, does he?
I don't. Which one?
Uh, let's see. The one in post Civil War.
Oh, is that with Sam Wilson?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has that ability for a long time.
I
Oh, I
think
thought
I think at this point you can only communicate with his bird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he can
Red
only
Wing.
as far as I'm aware, he can only do it with Red Wing now.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Yeah, so I guess you could say like they depowered that ability, not
They
fully
nerfed it.
gotten rid of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you have anything else to say about the Falcon?
I was just curious because I mean, sometimes I think I like there's certain characters that I'm attracted to that are considered to be relatively obscure. As opposed to, and I'm not talking about from the ones like not Black Panther or Nightwing. I'm talking about other ones. It's just that I haven't done much reading up on, but I'm definitely looking forward to. Etrigan is one of them. Yeah, I'm trying to find out. But my LCS doesn't have a whole bunch on Etrigan, so I gotta order a lot of stuff. But thankfully, Dalton sent me
Yeah,
plenty of
I was
research.
gonna say I've sent you a bunch to keep you
Yeah,
occupied for a while, so you should.
yeah.
And if you enjoy the ones I sent you, because I sent you just a sample of everybody's stuff. So if you
Mhm.
like one thing or another thing, just let me know and I'll send you more. Because there's plenty more where those came from. It's just I gave you a good sampling to get you into, and then if you turn out to like it,
All right.
boy for that.
I have one more opinion that I want to share, and I'm going to close out the stream.
Okay.
Yeah, my opinion is I'm pretty sure I've made this opinion abundantly clear. But my opinion is that Jason Aaron is the absolutely horrible, horrendous, just a terrible writer. I hate Jason Aaron's writing.
I didn't really like No Surrender.
I mean, you're not wrong. The problem with Jason Aaron is his eyes are bigger than his intellectual stomach, as the old saying goes. Because he starts out with really interesting concepts, and he is absolutely shit on the follow through. Absolute shit. Because there, in his Strange run, for example, there were things about about his run that I liked. Like for the first issue of Way of the Weird, I was on board because he introduced really cool stuff like the interdimensional bacteria, I believe is what he called them. Which is basically everywhere Strange looks, he sees spiritual entities that latch onto humans that are in a lot of cases benevolent. So he has to figure out which ones are the benevolent ones and which ones are the malefic ones. So that was a really interesting concept. And then he introduced the concept of the bar with no doors, which was a really good concept. Then he couldn't just keep Strange doing strange, like he couldn't keep Strange doing Doctor Strange things. He had to do the whole death of magic thing, and then he turned to Thor and did basically the same thing with the God Butcher storyline. Which, if he wanted to do that same thing, why didn't he just combine those and make it a big event thing? Because the death of
Jason
gods
Aaron
and
can't do
magic,
events. I
huh?
mean, look at War of the Realms. It's freaking terrible.
Right, but I wonder if he originally wanted to do an event um like with like Last Days of Magic mixed with God Butcher, and they told him no, and so he just broke it up into two separate stories. Because I think that one of the biggest problems with Jason Aaron is his his ideas are too big for his scale. He comes up with these big ideas that should have large reaching consequences, and they never do because he can never either get the he can never get the clout he needs. Because if Last Days of Magic and God Butcher had been the same storyline, they would have made a lot more sense. And if they were a universe-wide event, that would have made a lot more sense. Because for some reason, only Thor and Doctor Strange were affected by the death of gods and the death of magic in the Marvel Universe, despite the fact that there are so many god-related, um, characters that derive their powers from various deities and characters who derive their powers from magic that should have noticed that these forces were on the decline, and nobody did. And moreover, one of the sets of gods that should have been involved in the God Butcher storyline that wasn't was the Vishanti, and those never came up. Which, by the way, they seem to have forgotten that the Vishanti existed during the Last Days of Magic storyline. So yeah, I agree with you. Jason Aaron is utter shit, and the problem is he can never follow through on any of the ideas that he actually starts with.
Yeah, those two storylines aside, I don't like his Avengers run, and I've made plenty clear that I don't like his Thor run. But his Avengers run was so stupid because he essentially retcons the creation of humanity by saying, "Oh yeah, there were celestial space parasites in a dying celestial,
Oh
and
god,
those
yeah.
ran off into the primordial ocean, and that became humanity." I'm like,
Yeah,
that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, that was not a good retcon at all.
Like
the first
the
storyline.
Celestials were always involved in the Marvel universe with
Yeah,
the creation of
that's not
humanity.
what I'm arguing, but like humanity came from like parasites in the celestials.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
Yeah, that is really stupid. I mean, the
And then
first
he just
storyline was good, but that retcon, yeah, and others not so much.
like he should be fired for what he has done to Thor.
Yep,
He
no questions.
he makes Thor unworthy with literally somebody else's opinion, and then he gives the hammer to Jane Foster. Now, the idea of Thor being a woman is not something that I'm necessarily opposed if it had been done by someone who wasn't a hack.
If it was given to Valkyrie, for example, or
Yeah,
more
Valkyrie or
interestingly,
Sif is what I was saying.
or in my opinion, a more interesting one. What if Storm had been given the hammer of Thor? Can you imagine?
Well,
They already
that
did
has
that
been explored
storyline
before.
though. But
Did they?
yeah.
Yeah.
So Jason Aaron decides to give it to Jane Foster, and I don't think why she is worthy of Mjolnir is ever explained.
No.
But it wouldn't matter
just
anyway
worthy by the
because whatever they
power of
come
her
up with would be
wings.
bullshit. And then like he has her standing at the gates of Asgard yelling about the patriarchy of all things, and like talking smack to Odin, and then she kills the man god by throwing it into the sun, which literally would have been the first thing that Odin and Thor tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he destroys Mjolnir. And now he has Thor reduced to a bunch of, worthless, um, exposable hammers living on a houseboat in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Like he should never be allowed to write comics again for what he has done to Thor.
Yeah, and I agree also because what he did to Strange was a little bit less insulting, but it was not any better. Just delete an entire force of nature from existence, why don't you? And nobody's gonna notice because fuck you.
Yeah.
I consider Aaron a hit or miss, right? Hit or miss writer. When he hits, but when he misses, it's not that hard to see or recognize it. And Dalton, when you mentioned how the last days of Magic and the God Butcher storyline, like how they could have been one big two events are tied into an overarching arc.
Yeah, a
That actually-
universe-wide event rather than two relatively middling crap stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually would have made sense to have a much bigger impact to characters who have a natural affinity to magic or derive their powers from magical forces or entities. But yeah, let's just as you all said, like, he has big ideas, but in terms of execution, it's most of the time it will miss then hit.
Also in Avengers, what he's doing is he's recruiting a bunch of former Avengers and allies to be agents of Wakanda, like how they used to have agents of Shield, and like that's just stupid because I don't think any of the other Avengers would allow a secret police force to be run from their same headquarters that is loyal to a singular superpower in the world. When the Avengers are supposed to be a worldwide peacekeeping organization.
Yeah, so what would make more sense if they just made an Avengers International team in a similar but different manner to Justice League International instead of making them agents of Wakanda.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
he even recruited the Wasp like essentially he turned Janet Van Dyne into a secret agent for a foreign power. She would, if that was made public, she would never be allowed on United States soil again.
No, she wouldn't. Yeah, I mean,
So yeah, that just seems stupid. It seemed like Jason then was trying to piggyback off of the Flash popularity of Black Panther.
And I also kind of blame Jason Aaron for the relative crappiness of the Donny Cates Strange run, because as we've seen, Donny Cates has no problem being a competent writer. I think what kneecapped him was he had to clean up after all the bullshit that Jason Aaron had done.
Yeah. And he keeps trying to force Jane Foster to be a thing, but no one really wants Jane Foster to be around. And now he's made her all mother of Asgard, and he's turning her into Valkyrie. Like, just Aaron, just stop. Nobody likes his character. You keep trying to force down our throats. Just give it up.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to be a thing, to quote Mean Girls.
Yeah.
There are some people who like Jane Foster before she
Yeah, there are.
became female Thor.
Well,
It's
and
just how
funny-
she. Oh, you can go ahead, Dalton.
The funny thing is, she wasn't even that likable in the MCU. So why are you trying to force this down everybody's throats?
Well, it's not that I disliked Jane Foster. I mean, I didn't like the fact. I mean, Natalie Portman is practically sleepwalking through the
No.
second film, but it was just I just didn't care. I just didn't care.
Yeah, nobody gave a shit, and a lot
Yeah.
of people didn't even like her to begin with.
Yeah.
I was too
He
busy
keeps
looking at
trying
Kat
to
Dennings.
force these characters to be prominent when really they just belong in the background.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
hell,
I
I'm
know.
surprised. Like, what the hell happened to Sif?
She still exists, but a character that should actually be given a chance to shine
Yeah.
is being pushed aside for Jane Foster. And then they killed Valkyrie.
Oh wait, really?
No. They didn't kill her. Tessa Thompson's character? She's still alive.
No, I'm talking about in the
Not in the-
comics.
Oh,
The
yeah.
original Valkyrie.
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, they killed her, and now Jane Foster's going to take over. So, really, I'm pretty much done with all things Thor until the stench of Jason Aaron is a bygone memory.
Yeah,
Hmm.
agreed.
Yeah, I was not kind of, but I was disappointed with the reveal of what Nick Fury said to Thor that made him unworthy in the first place.
Yeah,
Of
that
course-
was dumb.
What was it again? I can't even fucking remember.
He said Gore was right.
That's the
Yeah.
stupid. That is once again the stupidest fucking thing I've. It's like ripping open an old wound. That's still the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and people were invested with the mystery of what Fury said to Thor, and the mystery of who this new female Thor is. Yes, but it's just how it's resolved. It's a mixed bag. It's mostly mixed and negative because they're disappointed
Yeah.
with the payoff.
And you also have to what Jason Aaron doesn't seem to understand is that Odin is the one that placed the worthy enchantment on Mjolnir. So essentially, it's Odin's standard of worthiness that determines who gets to lift Thor's hammer. And Odin does not like Jane Foster by any metric. So she's not going to be worthy of lifting the hammer. Just seems like
Jason
you
Aaron
wanted
doesn't
to do.
understand a lot of things.
He wanted to do something, so he ignored everything else that did not work with his idea.
And then of course there's the feminist preachiness that she's always been known for. Stop
Like-
treating feminism like it's a 4-letter word. No, my darling, it is. Fuck off. I don't care if you're Thor. It is still a 4-letter word in a lot of people's minds, and it should be.
Yeah.
But it's more of like how Jane was handled after she got the hammer, as well as the whole feminism thing. Like the idea of it of it, like people can agree on, because it's based on like basic human rights that for men and women. But in its current state, like there are plenty of reasons why people are critical of third wave feminism,
Well,
because it's
okay,
a step backwards.
so this is one of the areas I'm gonna have to disagree with you, because the problems that people have with feminism have always been a thing. A lot of people are under this misconception that the third wave is where things went wrong and the first and second waves didn't do anything wrong. But the thing of it is, even the suffragettes, who are famous for allegedly getting women the right to vote, are not the only people at the time who wanted to give women the right to vote. There were two factions of people trying to get women the right to vote, other than the suffragettes. One was called the suffragists, and one was called the Chartists. And the thing about the suffragists and the Chartists is they actually wanted full stop universal suffrage for all people. The suffragists, on the other hand,
guys.
most let me
Something.
let me finish the
No, seriously. Something has come up, and I have to go.
Oh,
okay. Damn.
All right, so I'm going to end the stream right here. Thank you guys, all for being on.
Thanks for
I
having
really
us.
appreciate it.
well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
All right, so thank you, everybody. You've been great guys, and please come again to the House of Mystery. Goodbye.
Cheers, guys.